the neighbors from a distance and say hello, but some of their things are not. I mean, they wear masks all the time and stuff, but still, it's not
Well,
ideal.
guys, it's 11. So I'm, even though we're not all here, we have, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say whether we have a lot to do or a little. But the biggest thing is this marking period 4 stuff, the new grades. So, I know probably a lot of department meetings start with a lot of small chat and get to know you and icebreakers and stuff. But I kind of just want to jump into it if that's all right with you all.
Mm-hmm.
You can all say hi if anybody wants to say hi. I haven't seen Patrick log on yet. I just texted him and he said he was going to jump on. And I asked him if it was okay to share this information. And I know he's not the only one dealing with some health issues with their parents. And Janelle was just talking about her mom. And there's Patrick now. So maybe we can I'll wait till he joins in. But I did want to share.
Ooh, somebody's hair's all funky like that.
Oh, look at Miss Caroline. Wow.
Somebody's up to there. Wow.
God, I just want a haircut so badly. Patrick, I was just about to let everyone know what's been going on with your mom. So his mom's in the hospital. Do you want to give them a quick update and then we'll jump into just I know that.
Yeah, so some unfortunate news, obviously. My long story short, my mom had a stroke over the weekend. And so luckily enough, she talked to her sister in the morning and told her that she wasn't feeling well. And basically my aunt said, okay, I'll call back and check on you. So of course she called back and my mom didn't answer. So she let, my sister and, my siblings know. And so we called and tried to get in contact with her and obviously couldn't. And so we don't really know at what point, sometime after 10:30 or so, it must have happened, but we went over to check on her to make sure everything was okay. And she was semi-conscious. So we obviously called the paramedics, and we honestly thought because it sounded like she was having some sort of stomach virus because she was dehydrated and, had diarrhea. It was almost like one of those like 24 to 36 hour bugs. And we just thought that she was dehydrated. Well, obviously not. And so fast forward, she seems to be doing pretty well. Considering she still has her speech is obviously somewhat slurred and marbled, but the damage, I guess the doctors were saying from, the first 24 to 48 hours or so is just the same, or maybe even a little bit less than what it was as far as the bleeding in her brain and all of that stuff, because it was a hemorrhage basically in her brain. And so it hasn't gotten any worse. And so they're, I guess, kind of positive about that, but it's the right side of her brain. So it's the left side of her body. And so she's having a little bit of issues with like swallowing, which is also indicative of the speech and stuff like that. So they're kind of giving her PT and moving along, but it's obviously really scary in the beginning. Hopefully now we're a little bit more, feeling that things are a little bit better, but definitely by no means out of the water. So we're just trying to take it day by day, and obviously trying, not being, feeling awful that she's there by herself and we can't see there or be with her, and that we're just trying to kind of communicate with the, the nurses and the staff. But, we don't get updates, but every few hours, 4 to 6 or even 8 hours, kind of when they're sharing, going through their rounds and they're sharing their info with, the doctors and everything else. So it's just kind of hard not being there, but also feeling like we're out of the loop, even though we're not out of the loop. It's just, so that part's, I guess, pretty difficult. But thank you for Gary, for Robin, for Caroline, for everybody. I tried to help out as much, but they've, been great this whole time through distance learning. So, they've really, really helped in that way. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, they've been really great. And like I said, I know there's a few other people who I think are also dealing with some big stuff, but are doing it, their own way. And just kind of keep in mind, this is really hard times for everybody. So you guys have been great, just as far as how you support each other and reaching out and also just staying with your classes. I mean, Patrick's going through all this, but you still messaging your kids and doing all the things you need to do for your lessons. So you certainly don't have to do that, but we're all there for each other, which is great. All right, guys. I see Mr. Barnett's here, so we're going to go ahead and just begin our meeting portion. And and get started. Unless anyone else has anything important they need to share or want to share. If there's something else that people need support around, maybe this is a good time to just sort of open it up in case there's anything else going on that we want to share. Okay, just want to make sure, because like I said, it's hard type stuff, but you guys have been just amazing, really inspirational. All right, so let me see if I can do this. So I'm going to share my screen, and there we go. And you should see this Rosenthal Prize. So Sarah just sent me an email, what, about an hour ago?
Yeah. Well, yeah, a parent sent it to me last night, and so I just saw it this morning.
And this is great. I mean, there's this math prize for inspirational math teaching, and the closing day is May 15th. So there's still 10 days that you could enter this thing. It's $25,000, which is amazing. So the link is rpzmomath.com. And it looks like this if you go there, and you get some information. They even have some, previous prizes, so you can get a chance to look and see what else has been there. So it's $25,000. So if that's something that interests you, definitely go there and check it out. That'd be, I mean, you guys all do amazing stuff, so that would be probably pretty cool to do. Oops, what's going on here?
Yeah. I think, Gary, I think you should enter your Desmos Conics activity. I think that's.
Do you like that one? That one.
I'm looking forward to trying it out with the kids. Yeah.
Good. Let me know how it goes. It was a lot of fun. The kids loved it last year, so should go pretty good. All right. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about marking period 4 grading. We finally got some guidance on that, and I just want to say my sister-in-law, she lives in Minnesota, and the rules for their marking period, for the schools there, is as long as the kids try at all, they get a passing grade. That's it. They just have to just as long as they do something, any kind of effort, and then they pass. So I'm glad that ours are a little bit tougher than that, but it's still quite, not probably as rigorous as we'd want it or as hoped, but we were going to go over it, make sure everyone understands that. And then I just want to kind of talk about some of the great stuff that we saw in the Zoom meetings, because I think a lot of things you guys do, we're so new and we feel so insecure. At least I know for myself, like when I'm doing this stuff, I don't know if what I'm doing is good or bad or what, because it's so brand new. And it was really neat. I kind of resisted wanting to pop in on your Zoom meetings, but I'm really glad I did. And it was just really cool to see what you guys do. And I think what you guys do without even knowing that what you're doing is good. So I just kind of felt like this is a good chance to just sort of, give you some feedback on that and some of the highlights that we saw, just talk about it and give you an opportunity also to share some things that we didn't see, but which are also good. And then just to do some clarifications on some things that I just feel like just noticing that maybe there's still some confusion around. And so we'll end with that. Oh, and then one more thing before the training. So the winner was the Talkingpts app that was sent out. So we're going to try to hopefully have a little bit of time to go over that and how you can use that Talkingpts app to message your parents. So that's the plan for today. So we'll start with the grading updates. These are the slides directly from Alicia. And it's just, I'm just basically going to read it. So we're shifting away from the traditional letter grade framework based on points and percentages to the pass incomplete. And the idea is we're trying to encourage, for overall encouragement and fairness and equity, allowing students access to the curriculum and receive feedback and have their progress tracked. So it is definitely a mind shift. And they've got this framework, because I don't know if you guys all got to read that either from the original message that went out to the parents or in the letter that I shared with you last night. But they have 4 measures, and the students have to meet 2 or more, and then they pass. And fewer than 2, they're marked as incomplete. So here are the measures. Assignment completion, at least 50% of the assignments. Content and skills demonstrates understanding of concepts or application of skills through grades, scales, rubrics. Engagement, consistently engages by attending scheduled teacher check-ins. And professional judgment, based on the body of evidence and a holistic view of student performance within the context of circumstances caused by the pandemic when it benefits the student. So there's some, guidelines there for, wanting the students to complete assignments and wanting to be engaged and wanting to understand things. But I think it's also really clear that this is a very favorable set of guidelines for the students. I think the intention here is to really try to encourage students to be able to work as much as they can and show fairness and pass them if they do. Aaron, maybe this is a good place for you to jump in. So am I reading that correctly? That, I mean, I feel like the subtext here is that really we want students to pass.
Yeah, I think people are going to fall, along a spectrum in terms of their reaction to this. I'm talking about teachers. Some teachers, I think, reasonably so, are going to be frustrated and say, we need to expect more. I think the spirit behind this is there's only so much we can control. We don't have kids physically in the building, and there's so many variables that it's impossible to expect that every kid is going to be able to master everything. And there's just too many variables that are actually barriers for kids. And so it's sort of in the spirit of equity and saying that we can't just sort of say, well, everyone should get a grade, because it's not equitable. And so it tries to do its best to sort of find a way to make it fair and give you some guidelines. It's certainly not perfect, and people are going to hate it, and some people are going to love it. But it's from the county, and it sort of is what it is, and it's something we just got to go forward with. But it really favors engagement heavily, like you said, Gary, and it's going to be a lot on teacher discretion. But it's definitely favored toward kids passing. And I think with everything going on in the world and everything kids are going through, I think that's pretty fair.
And we'll have a chance for you guys to ask questions in a minute. I want to go through the rest of Alicia's slides. But I do think the biggest takeaway I have from this is that it really shifts the way in which we engage with our kids. And it's not so much like, these are the benchmarks, these are things you have to do, but I think it becomes more like we just have to keep pulling them into it. Like, hey, let's learn about this and let's learn about this, and just try to get as much out of them as we can. So it's going to be hard for us to be able to say, hey, you have to do this or else, because there isn't a whole lot of or else now. There is some, but there's not a whole lot. So I think we really need to just shift the way in which we communicate. That's kind of my biggest takeaway from looking at these. So this is also really, really important. And she started here because this is a change from what we sent out earlier. So notice that you have multiple redo opportunities, multiple attempts on quizzes, resubmission of assignments, teacher feedback, resubmission. You see that we really are encouraging students to resubmit. For my own class, I just sent out, I actually made a module of makeup work assignments and sent that to all my students who had low grades and say, hey, you can work on this, work on this. I extended deadlines on assignments. I extended the retake, the numbers of reassessments on quizzes, and that's the standard. That's what we should be doing. We should be offering more and more multiple reassessments, letting them redo things and try to figure out and try to get better at stuff. So that's a big shift away from what we did. Another change here, we said you could do zeros and Z's. We cannot do zeros and Z's. So that's the end of that. And you do need to go back, and everything that you've got that's a zero and a Z, you have to go back and change those to either blanks or X's. I just for myself, I know that's going to be really hard, because I had students who became engaged because they had zeros, and I've got kids writing me and saying, hey, how do I do this? I got to get my grade up. And I worry now that they're not going to do that. But this is like I said, this is coming down from the county. This is the approach we need to take. And we're just going to find different ways to bring kids in. So no more zeros and Z's. We go and we change that. No penalty for assignments turned in after deadlines. And continue to use the grade book. So keep tracking that. Use the traditional use of the categories. Formative, summative homework is not being used to calculate the grade. Grades entered in grade book are being used primarily for feedback. So just remember, that's the main reason we're putting the grades, is so the students have a sense to know what they're doing well and what they're doing poorly on. And it looks like we have a couple more slides here, then we'll do questions. And what's going on there, Aaron? Oh, there we go. Do we need to change Z's or zeros? Yes. Why are we still giving grades as we're getting pass-fail? The grade serves as feedback for students, but has no bearing on the final pass-fail grade. So it's just for feedback. That's what they're getting grades for. What do you mean by feedback? It helps the students have a sense of whether or not they mastered the skill or not. And so that sort of shifts the way in which we have that conversation. It's not about the grade, it's about, do you understand the material? What happens if a student receives an incomplete instead of a pass? I don't know if this is going to work because of my little window here. If I wait, I think it fades. Can you all see it? You can't see it either, right? There it goes.
Yeah.
We're not sure yet. More information to come. All right, questions for myself or Aaron on that?
Well, I mean, doesn't this make it harder for parents to have feedback? Like if, if I go to Alden's grade page and everything says A, okay, I'm like, okay, that looks pretty good. But now he could like have turned in one thing, one like 2-point assignment for a class, and it would say he has an A, and I have no, it doesn't show up that he has 10 other things he didn't do. I mean, I get the rationale, but I feel at least like on a temporary basis, I mean, isn't a Z better feedback than leaving it blank? And then, so how does the parent know we have, they have missing assignments, and we have to email the parents individually and tell them your kid has only done 1 out of 11 assignments or something?
Aaron, can I let you take that?
Sure. I think we need to do a good job, as a county and as a school of educating parents that you need to do more than just look at the grade, because it's not really about the grade anymore, right? So if you really want to keep up with your kids, then you're going to need to go in and look for those blanks, which isn't ideal. And nothing about this is ideal. And I understand the frustration, trust me. But the reality is I think we just have to realize that this is a significant shift to a framework that doesn't match our system of schooling. It doesn't. So it's going to be painful and it's going to be uncomfortable and it's not perfect. But, we're going to try to do a really good job as administrators. So this week, each administrator has basically a community meeting with parents and students, which hopefully a good number of kids attend. And that's going to be one of the messages, is to really educate the parents on what to expect in terms of their kids. But I think beyond this, like, we sort of have to say, like, the grade itself, it doesn't matter. Like Gary said,
No, I get that, but I feel like then the incentive is like, okay, so if I say log on to my MCPS and take this quiz, and a kid said, well, I already have, an A in the grade book, all that quiz could do is bring it down. I mean,
you're exactly right. We lose a lot of control. We lose that carrot. 100%. I agree with you. But unfortunately, there's not much we can do. All we can do is remain positive, continue to encourage kids to engage as much as possible. And, that's really all that's in our control. So I hear your frustration. I completely understand. But, this is what the county believes is really best for all students, in that many students don't have parents who can even check. And so, I guess it extends the gap between those who have and those who don't. It tries to do, a one solution fits all, and that's never going to work for everyone. And clearly it's not working for a portion of the population. So that's all we can do, though.
Yeah, it really does it's a huge challenge. And Sarah, I'm with you 1,000%. I agree too. It's I had the same thought that, for my students who haven't taken the quizzes or haven't taken the grade assessments, they're now kind of demotivated from doing that, because if they do it and they don't do well, it actually lowers their grade as opposed to raising their grade. So it's going to be really hard. We're just going to have to keep thinking of ways that we can communicate, ways that we can give students assessments, even though it might say they have an A. They may have an A, but they may have an A because they haven't been doing anything. That's actually a trajectory towards failing. So we need to be able to communicate that with them as well, and say, I know your grade right now says A, but we need you to understand that for me to be able to pass you, you need to be able to do more than this, and we're going to want you to do more. So this is definitely something we're going to have to wrestle with and think about and come back to. But I definitely agree with that. And then Elizabeth asked on the chat, if a student is on a failing trajectory, we pass them unless they aren't engaged. What will a fail look like? So so that's correct. I mean, if they've currently been failing the class, but they're able to meet 2 of those 4 measures, then they should pass. Now, maybe they can't meet those 2 or 4 measures. I mean, one of the measures is competency, so they may not be able to do that. Another measure is participation, and maybe they're not doing that, or assignment completion, maybe they're not doing that. I mean, they have to be able to meet, and then one of them is your own judgment. So if you're feeling like they're failing, they're not going to meet past that. So I would say it would definitely be reasonable that a student who is not passing now and is failing would continue to not fail. I would continue to fail, excuse me. So I think that's maybe that's a good way to think about it, that, okay, this is a kid, they haven't been passing yet. I need to really reach out and try to figure out how to get them through at least 2 of those measures. Someone was going to say something,
like,
or other questions?
but they're going to log in the grade book, and it's
Going to say A, and that's going to be
it's going to say A, and and it used to say E, and now all of a sudden it says A, and now we have to get on them and say, well, the grade book says A, but you're not really passing.
I think you got that exactly right. Yeah, go ahead, Cindy.
I think you need to make it very clear to them that the blanks mean the assignments aren't done. And when they look in there and they've done 1 out of 10, that's not 50%. And regardless of what the percentage says as a grade, they are not meeting that, whatever they call it, measure. Because they have to recognize that blanks mean they haven't done it, and ignore the point value, ignore the percentage that the computer is calculating. We have to make it really clear that when they look in there, both parents and students, that blanks mean they haven't done it. I mean, I have some kids that have done 1 out of 8 assignments. Right now, they do not meet the 50% completion, even though it says 100%, because they got an A on the 1. They have to recognize that. And we have to keep telling them that, I think, anyway.
I think that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Can we use the gradebook pass-fail option for assignments? We can't put Z's or zeros. I don't know how what do you mean, Beth, do you want to come out, unmute? What is the gradebook pass-fail thing?
I'm going to go back and look at it now. Do we all have the ability to share our screens?
Maybe. Why don't you go down and see? I'll stop sharing mine.
Well, right now I'm trying to find my grade book. Hold on a second.
Oh.
I thought when we put in an individual grade that we, it's like regular category, completion category. Let me see right here. On the category, progress check, participation, ungraded category. I mean, we have an assignment completion category. All of those are ungraded so that it wouldn't show a total grade in the end. Are we able to use that? We've always been limited to the 10 and 80%,
right.
10% category. Can we start using that now? Because that would.
Why don't Aaron, why don't you and I talk about that one offline and come back? That's an interesting idea. So those ones that don't actually affect their grade but would still show up as feedback, maybe that's an interesting.
Gary, I spoke with Alicia yesterday about that, and she said she was going to check with Scott.
Oh, great.
What could happen.
All right. So thank you guys both. So we'll circle back on that.
And
all right,
just by the way, it also says that I can't share my screen.
Okay. You know what? Let's go ahead and just keep moving forward anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that's fine. All right, guys. Yeah, I think we all feel that. So it is a challenge, but I like these ideas that we're coming up with, and we're just going to have to keep finding ways to communicate and get that message to them. I certainly think we've heard the message there clearly from the county.
Are we going to revisit placement in view of, this pass incomplete? I mean, for my 6th and 7th graders, this makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Robert, you also want to say something?
I just had a quick question with regards to what suggestions that you had for communicating this to our students. Is there a way that we can create a department-wide module or announcement that we share through my MCPS, kind of like, hey, this is the 4 criteria for grading, or how you're going to do the pass fail, something so that it's a little bit more uniform. And then also maybe make a department decision about blanks or X's as a department, so we're consistent across the board, so that communication with stakeholders is a little bit more uniform.
So Rob, I'm just going to jump in. First of all, I think it's a really, really good question. I think both of those really need to be like school-wide, just in the sense of like saying like whatever we're doing in science should really be what we do in math in terms of zeros and Z's and pass fail. I think right now we need to go with what the county is telling us to do. And then what I'll do is like Cindy said, we'll talk to Alicia and the director in terms of the pass fail piece. And then in terms of how are we as a community communicating this to our students. I mean, I can tell you, I've already reached out and emailed all of the 7th graders specifically about this, but it's something that we're going to have to decide on as a school, like what's the best way of communicating this so that it's clear and consistent.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask that, like, should we hold off on talking to our students about this until we get a little more clarity about what's the exact language to use? Do you want to share your email to the 7th graders, and we should all use that for all of our kids? What do you recommend?
So what I'm going to do is I have to talk to Alicia today anyways, and I'm going to bring up this exact topic because I think it's really important that we have clear and consistent messaging, and then I'll get back to you and all the RTs.
Okay, fantastic. Let me just quickly, guys, I didn't realize there was another slide here. So, oops, let's go back. There you go. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so you can all read that. I think that's probably good for this right now. I want to cover some other things before we run out of time, but yeah, I think if more things occur to you or you think about them, I think these concerns are really good. There's a lot of challenges here, so anything that you come up with, email me, email Aaron, or call, and then we'll keep running it by Alicia. I think that's very important that we are all consistent in our messaging, and we're very clear on how we communicate this and how we communicate when students we believe are below the threshold, and how we encourage students who are above the threshold, but we want more out of them. I think those are all big questions. So maybe I'll try to put that, the comments you guys have had together. I think I might try to put that together in a single message. I'll send it out to you all, so we're all making sure we all kind of have the same concerns, and then we'll present that to the A team. All right, let's go talk about Zooms. So Aaron and I had a great time going and popping in the Zoom meetings. I thought I might be able to do it this week, but I don't think I am, so I'm gonna probably do it again next week. But we got around to everybody. One of the interesting things was how many students, what kinds of Zoom meetings there were. So we made a little form that we kind of kept track of what we were seeing. So most of it was live instruction. There was some question and answer, some small group, some review, like a catch-up session. So kind of interesting to see the different sorts of things that were going on for each of the Zoom meetings. How many students was there was interesting. We had some as low as 7, a lot in the 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 range, around there. 26. Don't know how you did that, Sarah. That was 26 students. Nobody else has gotten anything close to that. I think we're all saying participation is definitely a challenge in getting kids to come to Zoom meetings. So we'll talk about that. Sarah, do you want to explain your secret? Is it a secret?
I mean, no, I tell them we're covering new material. I guess, I've had good luck doing Kahoot, doing quizzes. I started using the chat box more after Kathy's suggestion, and like I have the kids like send their responses privately to me first, and then we talk about it. So I don't know. I just think, I don't know. No, I don't have any secrets other than I tell them we are learning new stuff. We are doing new at every meeting. There's not going to be just like if you have some questions or whatever. So
interesting. Interesting. Anyway, I thought you guys would all get a sense, because it's hard to know how things are going in other groups. So I thought you'd appreciate that. One of the things that Aaron and I did while we watched these things is we just sort of recorded some brief thoughts we had about, like, oh, that's really stood out. And this is by no means like all the great things that you guys have been doing. Like I said, I think a lot of it that everyone's doing their Zoom meetings, it just comes naturally, and you wouldn't even know that it's particularly positive. But these were things that we noticed, probably because we wouldn't have thought of them ourselves, and so it was just really interesting to see. So I just thought, rather than trying to like put it all together in a fancy format, I just cut and paste what we actually typed into our form as we were there. Like, wow, that was really cool. And you might recognize yourself in there, you might not, I don't know. But those are really interesting things, like we're just going on, that you guys really are doing a lot of neat stuff, and we're all doing it, really cool stuff. And I think it's just fun to see how each one has their own sort of spin. Everybody had their own spin on how those Zoom meetings went. So that was wonderful. I think clearly the things that were working are document cameras. Those people who had document cameras, those really work. Most of us don't have them. I don't have one. But those people who did, that was really effective, to have a document camera showing what you're working on, and actually writing on a whiteboard or writing on a piece of paper, while they can also see your face, because you got one camera on your face and one camera on the work. That was pretty amazing. People who do work out problems, and I don't, so I'm going to start doing that. That was clearly really a good thing, that if you can actually show the students as you work through and write out the problem, that was really, really effective, either with a whiteboard behind you or on a piece of paper with a document camera, or some teachers are actually writing using their mouse and writing with the mouse, which give you lots of props for that, because I don't know how to do that, but that was pretty amazing to see people actually working through problems, and that seems to really help the students. Just talking students through the process. I mean, that was amazing to see how effective that was, where you just go through like, this is what we're going to do first, this is what we're going to do second, this is what you're doing here, and just talking them calmly, speaking through, here's how we run the problem, or here's how we do the entire lesson. Taking time to just explain, this is what you're doing this week. That was clearly really effective. Getting student feedback is really good, either having them just verbally answer a question. That happened in a lot of people's Zoom meetings, or taking polls, or doing the little participants feedback buttons. All those things seem to be really good. Getting the kids to give feedback, that was really effective. There's a few teachers that are using the breakout rooms, and when they send them to the rooms to work on a problem, so they have 2 or 3 kids working on a problem and then they come back to talk about it, that clearly works really well too. And a lot of you guys are doing things that just create connections, just fun little surveys, or ways to just like kind of make it so that you're really getting to know the students and they're knowing you better. That was fun too. So what else? What are some other things that you guys have been experiencing that you feel are working? Mary Beth, your hand's up, and Wendy, your hand might still be up from before, but Mary Beth, why don't you go first?
That was from before.
Oh.
I will unhand me.
I can clear you. There we go.
Thank you.
So what else is working? So Cindy put in the chat the TI-84, that works really well. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a software. It works really well. They can see it on your screen.
Oops. There we go. Well, those are all good ideas that we got so far. And I know there's a lot of other stuff. Put in the chat or whatever you want to share. It's really, I think, yeah, the document cameras, I see a lot of people talking about that in the chat. That does work really well. I wish I had one. I also want to just talk about some things that you guys are doing that maybe give you an opportunity to talk about something that you're particularly proud of. I think there's other stuff that's going on either in our pages, our Google Classroom pages, or our Canvas pages that's really neat. And if we were in the same building, we might kind of know about it, but we don't. And so it feels a little isolated. I know one teacher is doing a Zoom Spirit Week, having students dress up or have different backgrounds for their Zoom meetings. Would anyone else like to take a second and just sort of share out something cool that they're doing that maybe would be fun for everyone to know about?
I don't know. I guess in the building connection. So I have like a warm up question, like something I've done. Like I made homemade cheese with my kids last week, and so I put that up there, and then I say like, what interesting, cooking or baking or food project have you tried and how did it go? And they type answers in the chat box. And that's fun, because otherwise at the beginning of the meeting, like none of the kids, like they come into class and they chat with each other, but they would all just kind of like sit there. So
thanks, Sarah. Yeah, that's a great one.
So that generates a good discussion in the chat box. And then I comment on them too, and they comment on each other's stuff. So that's fun.
Robin?
Last week we had Funny Hat Day. That was fun. I was the only one for the most part wearing it, but I tried. This week I wanted to try Bring Your Parent to School Day. So I don't know. I'm just trying to think of different things that we could do to get them involved, and the parents can kind of see what they're doing as well. I don't know.
I feel like the thing I'm proudest about is just how we've taken the material that's been provided to us and changed it and tried to improve upon it. I feel like Janelle and I think have been really good about, we bounce sort of we take a look at the module, we bounce it back and forth, we talk about it, we say, oh, we're taking rid of this, get rid of this. This they said was optional, we're making it mandatory. And I feel like we're actually putting together some tight lessons in an environment that's really hard to do. So that's probably the thing I'm most proud of.
I think for me, in one of my Math 7 meetings, the kids really connected when I had my son with me. And so it was just, it's I don't know what they think. It's like they don't think that teachers have real lives or whatever. But anyway, a lot of their cameras were off. And one student in particular who I've had issues with engaging, she came and then was holding her little brother. And then all of a sudden, all these like cameras started opening up. And it was kind of scary because it just realizes, you know, how much they're dealing with, you know, just like us. But at the same time, it at least kind of gave them that personal connection kind of that Sarah was talking about, because, you know, for a lot of them, that's what's going to pull them in. So that was just kind of cool, that even though it wasn't academic related.
That's great. Anyone else? We all really
Oh,
are
I'm
doing-
unmuted.
Oh, yeah, go.
Yeah. My last class seems to be likes to engage in class a lot more. So I don't know what it is, but we started having, like, even if we finish, because it's the last class of the day, we have like a fun Kahoot that's not math related at all. It would be like trivia or something, and they stay after, like, it's past 4:15. Like, I don't have any huge responsibilities at home, so I can do that. But it was really cool to have like an after school Kahoot for funsies. And a lot of them stay. I was surprised. Yeah, like a pop culture Kahoot. Yeah.
Oh, fun. Like a fun Kahoot. Yeah, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, there were a couple of things that I thought it's maybe good to clarify, just so that we're all kind of on the same page of. So one is that you may not require students to have cameras on. A few people were sort of saying that in their Zoom sessions, and you have to be really careful with that, because MCPS actually has some strict guidelines that we're not allowed to make the students show us what's going on at their house, and they have to protect their privacy. That kind of came out as a big thing prior to the distance learning starting. So if you have that requirement, you take that requirement off, because it's really important that the kids know it's okay for them to keep their cameras off. You are expected to use the county curriculum, or at least look at it. So I know there's a few teachers that hadn't done that yet. So do make sure that if you're not sure how to do that, reach out to me and I will show you. But make sure you're going to Commons and Canvas, looking at the materials. Actually, it's pretty good. I mean, there's been some that's been stinkers, but for the most part, they're pretty good. And it's, you know, they make it a lot easier for you, not having to work and create all this stuff yourself. You've got it already made. They've tried to make it Google Classroom friendly, so a lot of the materials can be just, you know, put as links on the Google Classroom. So do definitely take a look at that, and then, you know, you make it your own. You know, you record your own video, or you do whatever you need to do to sort of, you know, add your spin to it. Remember to, especially now with these new guidelines, be inviting, not punitive. I mean, that really has to be our whole focus, is just be inviting. If participation is low, you can try generating a rally effect by just talking up all the kids who are really doing, oh, it's been great, all these people did this. And if you keep putting a lot of attention on those who are doing it and are getting things done, that will generally try, you know, or not even saying specific names, or saying, oh, it was great to see everybody doing this and all those people doing this. And the more you talk about it as if there's this whole party going on, that everybody's working, you will find that that will bring more and more kids in. So that's a good strategy to sort of bring more kids in. And the other strategy is emails and texts. And obviously, we need to be really clear on our communication, but I send out emails to parents and texts to parents. And that really does seem to be effective as far as bringing kids into the Zoom meetings and also getting them to do work. So yeah, we need to be communicating.
Hey, Gary.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention something that I did that that worked pretty well when we were on the meeting. So I went through the attendance and everything like that. And then after I did and found out who were the absent people, I asked the students, you know, does anybody have their number? Can anybody text them or get in touch with them and get them on? And that got about 3 or 4 extra students on during the Zoom session, and just saying, okay, you're in charge of getting in touch with X, you know, whoever, and and then I would assign a different student to somebody else. And it didn't take care of everybody, but it did get most of them.
That's great. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Thanks. Any other thoughts, questions? All right, last thing, speaking of communicating. So this was our winner, that people wanted to learn about this Talking Points program and how to do that. I thought I had actually posted the survey results, but that's okay. So I'm just going to quickly talk you through this or show you how to do it. And I think I'll just do it for myself. I'll import my contacts into Talking Points so you can kind of see what that looks like and how that works with Scott's spreadsheet. So what you do, if you want to send text to your parents or students' parents, and also you can send it, I think, to students as well, you go to talkingpoints.org, So talkingpts.org. You log in with your mcps.net Google account. It's going to kind of direct you to a special site where you're going to search for a school name. It's going to ask to connect to your Google Classroom. All that stuff happens pretty much automatically. You just kind of go along with it. And then you get to a page that looks like this. And it says just a few steps to start engaging with students' families. There's a little thing that says to add contacts. So you click on that add contacts button. And you get a little window that says there's two ways to add contacts. You can either invite by a code or add the contacts yourself. So if you invite by a code, it looks like this. I don't know if you're going to want to do that, but I thought I'd show you this is what it looks like. It creates a little code that you can cut and paste. It gives you a letter you can download. Of course, the downside of this is that if you can't contact the parents, like, how are they going to get the code? Like, if they don't have an email, they're not checking email, how do you get this to them? So it's not the best system in the world. And also, you're allowed to have it connect right to the Google Classroom and have them connect that way. But again, the parents have to already be guardians on the Google Classroom, so they may not work as well too. But those are options as well for how you can connect to it. I think the way most of us are going to do it is with the actual taking the information and putting it into the website itself, which is not that hard. And I'm hopefully this will work and I can show you pretty quickly. Basically what you do is when you do the other option, instead of invite by code, you do add contacts. It gives you this little information that you can either invite families by code, or you can copy and paste the contacts from an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheets. You can also import from Google Classroom, but again, that means your students and parents have to be already on there. But what you're going to do is you're going to first put the information into their template. That sets it all up in the right order and the right, format, so that all you have to do is, once you got it into their spreadsheet, you copy the names and you click on this first box, name, and you do Control V to paste it, and it automatically goes in there, and then you're done. So the idea is you put it into the spreadsheet that they've already created, and then you just copy and paste it right into the website. And I haven't done it yet, so I'm going to try it right now and see how this works. So when I go to my Talking Points page, here it is, looks like this. I click on Google Sheets, and I got this Google Sheet document that looks like this. Of course, I can't paste anything into it because it's view only. So first thing I'm going to do is make a copy so that I can edit it. I feel nervous, like I'm not sure if this is going to work, but we're going to try. Then what we're going to do is you're going to go to the database that Scott made. So there's the database, the contact export. And what you're going to want to do is you want to get rid of everything but your kids. So the easiest way to do that is you can select everything. And if you go just put in a filter, you can go over and you can actually just choose your name, or choose everything but your name. So every name is selected. What you want to do is you want to delete everything that's not you. So I'm going to select everything except me. And then I'm going to delete all of those rows. Oh, except now it's going to crash. Well, it's a big file. So there it goes. So I think I just did it. I deleted all the rows. So now you'll notice by the row numbers, all I'm left here with is my stuff. Now I think I actually deleted the headers as well. So that wasn't so great. But this is basically just all of my students. They're listed multiple times because there's different contacts for each, mother and father, sister, brother, things like that. So that's okay. You actually want it that way. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste this information right into the spreadsheet. So into the Google spreadsheet. So here's last names. So maybe I'll copy, and then I'm going to go back to my Google spreadsheet that I made. Here it says contact sheet. Come on, computer, you can do this. And student last name. So here, I'll just put it right here and paste. And please work. When I made my recording for my class this week, my computer was so slow. So I don't know what's going on with it, but there it goes. Okay, and then we're just going to do the same thing over and over again. So now I'm going to go back to Excel, and I'm going to highlight the first names, and I'm going to copy, and I'm going to come to my first names, and I'm going to paste it. And you get the idea that basically just one by one, you're going through and pasting all of those fields into this spreadsheet. So you'll put in and Scott's laid it out, so it actually works pretty well. You can copy the name of the parent's first name, parent's last name, the relationship, language. You can copy all of the information right from his spreadsheet, and then phone number. Now, it'll only work if the student actually has a phone number on there. So some of those contacts don't have phone numbers. So since I haven't done this yet, I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, but I think you get the idea. And I know we're running low on time here. It's 11:45, but basically what you'll do after this is you just highlight all the names from your new document, go over to Talking Points, stick it there, and paste it in, and it should paste everything right into the video, and right into the add context, and then you can submit, and you're done. And then it'll let you start sending text messages. There is a little video that you can watch. So when you go to Talking Points, they have a little link to a video, and it kind of goes through that process. That's how I learned it, and I'm anxious to try this and finish this up after this meeting. Questions, comments, thoughts? That's kind of a quick rundown on how that program works.
I have a question about that disengagement form that the team is using.
Yeah, so I know every grade team's doing it a little bit differently, but I mean, I can speak to our team, so yeah.
Well, I looked in the column about contact, and I was just wondering, is that for the teachers? Is that for admin? I've contacted all my disengaged students. Should I be putting that in, that I did that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's the whole point, is that the ones that go onto that sheet for 7th grade, we wanted only the ones that you hadn't heard back from, that you'd reached out and hadn't heard back from. But maybe if you've been trying, maybe you don't have a way to get contact with them because you don't have, the email's not working or the text isn't working or whatever, you can put that information in that spot.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Yeah, other questions, guys? All right.
I just had a quick comment. I put it in the chat, but I really liked the Talking Points app. One of my parents, multiple, only speak Spanish, so I can text in English and she receives it in Spanish, and then she texts in Spanish, I receive it in English. So it's super helpful for those parents that you might need the language line for, because now you don't really need it. And I've been able to get her kid to come to my classes. So I've really liked it. I've really liked the app. So I think it's a great tool.
Thank you. Yes, and I also like your chat point about make sure you filter out the related activity, or if it's TAP or homeroom or other things that are on there, make sure you filter those out as well, and delete those listings as well before you start copying. And yeah, Caroline, I think that's exactly right. Those ones, I think that's a good question. Actually, let me double check with Rachel. So you reached out, you did hear back from them, but they're still not doing anything. So I think the point of the spreadsheet, and I know for most teams, the point of these spreadsheets is for them to know when to move it to the next level, to have guidance. So I think maybe that's probably how you want to decide, okay, do you need help on this? If this is a person you need help reaching out for, or you want to find out whether other teachers are having the same issue, then put it on the spreadsheet. So that might be one you would want to put there, just because, all right, I heard something, but I'm still not getting anything. So what are other people doing? Maybe I want to go to guidance. So that's probably the answer to that question. All right, gang, it is past time. You guys are wonderful. If you have any other questions or issues, or if you want to stick around a little bit, I'll stick around for a few minutes later in case anyone wants to talk privately, but you guys are free to go. Good luck with your Zoom meetings for the rest of the week, and good luck with everything, and have a wonderful, productive instructional week. Thank you for being here.
I have a question, Gary.
Okay. Should I keep recording this?
It doesn't matter. It's about the Desmos activity.
Oh, okay, good.
So, so I watched the thing about, the logging in versus not logging in.